Hi everybody, it's Josh with Talk About Trek, and tonight we are back to do something a little bit different. Now I know you're saying, Josh, you've said this before, and then you always just do some Star Trek related thing. Aha! Not tonight. However, it is going to be a trek, so we are still going to talk about a trek. However, it is a trek through the human soul, through joy, despair, revenge. In short, a trek through 1800s Marseille and the Count of Monte Cristo. This is my favorite book of all time, and if you've been following along, you know that I've just started reading this, or rereading this here at the beginning of the year. And typically I would not talk about a non-Star Trek related thing on this channel, but honestly, it is just, let's go down a little bit, it is just too good not to talk about. So indulge me, if you please, as we spend the next few videos, perhaps the next week or so, deep diving into what I consider to be the greatest book of all time. You know, arguably, of course, everyone will have their own opinion on that, but it's my favorite. And again, it's something that I've read and I've reread. I've read the initial, the shorter version, and then of course I've got now mark my place first, the extended Robin Buss edition, which is what I've reread here for the past several times. This bad boy is a beast of a book. Look at that. Whew. So anyway, we are, we're about that far in. We're nearly a third of the way through. A fairly good time, I think, to stop and talk about where we're at. Because for me, this book takes place in several parts, which I've kind of divided up, for myself. And of course, as it was released, it was a serial thing, and it was released, I think, over the period of 2 years or something, maybe. I want to say 1846, but imagine that. That's something I like to think about too. Take yourself back in time to 1847, right? And you've got to wait. You got to wait to get the continuation of the story. Just like how we have to wait now for the next episode or whatever that we're waiting for. But this was just a completely different time and a whole different thing. And it just, I don't know. It makes me think, and it makes me want to put myself in their shoes as the eager, reader, waiting to find out what's going to happen to Dantes, in the next installment when it comes in. So anyway, without further ado, let's dive right in. I don't know how this is going to go. We're just going to play it by ear, and I am so happy to have found fine illustrations. I've often wondered that, there's got to be art from the time period that was done by people. So I took some time, I looked into it, and it wasn't very hard to find. And you can find this for yourself on Project Gutenberg, actually. This is the Count of Monte Cristo in 5 volumes with nearly 500 illustrations from designs by G. Stahl, J.A. Bos, and other eminent French artists. And this was published by George Routledge and Sons in 1888. So check this out. Oh, look at these illustrations, right? Are you kidding me? Fan-freaking-tastic. But we'll start from the beginning. Here we have our protagonist, the young Edmond Dantes, first mate of the three-master Pharaon, coming in after a successful voyage to of course, the port of Marseille. This is commanded by the firm of Morel and Sons. Now, one of my favorite things about this book is how Dumas so expertly goes from joy to despair, and from despair to joy and back again. You're constantly bouncing back, with everything that goes on in this book. And that's just in the beginning, right? So you have young Edmond Dantes. He's coming back. His poor captain has passed away of brain fever, but it looks as if he is going to be made captain of the Pharaon. Now, of course, a young man becoming captain is bound to arouse some jealousy. So you see that here first with the. Anyway, here is, of course, the Pharaon coming in. But you have. You have here, of course, him greeting his ship owner, Monsieur Morel, telling him about poor Captain Leclerc and how he died of the brain fever. But he needs to quickly go and see his love, and his love is Mercedes. She lives in the Catalans, so he's eager to see her. But before he goes to visit her, he has a very special visit to make. So Morel kind of talks to him about his hope of becoming captain. He has to speak with his partner first, of course, but it's his hope, And again, that raises the jealousy of the purser, kind of the bookkeeper of the boat, Danglars. Now, Danglars is now jealous, of this young man who's to become his captain. So here's the first little seed of jealousy. We're coming up to the second one here soon. Anyway, that's Mercedes. Dantes, first things first, rushes home to greet his father, who is just delighted to see him, of course, and he's stricken to find out that his father has went for basically like 6 weeks on the amount of money needed for just 1 week, because he had to pay a debt that they owed to their neighbor Caros, and he is a tailor who lives in the same building as them, who first appears in the story as a friend to them. And when he comes in to greet Dantes after after he realizes he's there to greet his father, Dantes is like, he's a little put off, obviously, because his father paid this debt that he owed them, but because of that, he had to live so lean for all this time. So but Dantes, still being the honorable man he is, he offers, he's like, do you need any of this money that I have? Because he recently brought some money back. And he actually, this is so great too, he made it seem as if it was his father's money too. See, my father wants for nothing. See, he has all this money here. Would you like to borrow some? Anyway, it's just a great opening introduction scene to all these characters, basically. Here, another view of old Dantes as he's, I think, heading later. But after that, he's got to go meet his beloved Mercedes. And he goes and he meets Mercedes. But who is there? He doesn't go to meet his love and expect to find an enemy there as well, right? But it is not an enemy. It is someone Mercedes loves as a brother. It is Fernand, her cousin. However, Fernand really is a bit of an enemy. Fernand loves Mercedes and consequently hates Dantes. Again, beautiful introduction to his character. You can feel how much he hates him. You can see how much he hates him right there in that picture. Look how much he hates him. He hates him so much. So jealous, of what they have, right? So anyway, the lovers are happy. They're ecstatic. Edmond finally agrees to shake Fernand finally agrees to shake his hand, but then runs off, with his head in his hands, mad, right? Oh, before we get too far ahead, look at the notes I'm taking on this book. I am taking notes like I'm in middle school over here, and I'm loving it too. It's just kind of fun to write down my initial thoughts, and kind of how everything feels to me this time. Did I notice something different from what I've read before? So, first off, let me read if there's anything that I'm missing here. No, we're following right along here just fine. I don't think I've missed out on anything. I just want to point out how much I love these illustrations. I saw them for the first time yesterday, and I've saved maybe the first 130 to get through to where I'm at now, and I'm so excited to see all that's left, right? So here's a scene that was kind of prior to that. Fernand asking Mercedes, when will you relent? When will you marry me? And her giving the same answers. I've always told you, Fernand, I love you as a brother, nothing further. Can't we just be friends? Right? Danglars. So here, the chief instigator of the conspiracy, right? The jealous of the young Dantes and his what's happening. So here you see the plot, right? And this is kind of going by chapter titles. So Marseille, the arrival, father and son. He greets his son. Les Catalans, now the plot. So Danglars invites Cateras for a drink at La Reserve, and they see Fernand coming down the road, despondent, head in his hands, and they invite him over for a drink as well. And from here, everything kind of comes together. And you have to... It's fun to kind of, go through it and see. And it's really obvious who the main driver of it is. It's Danglars, right? But anyway, we'll discuss that later. Anyway, they're meeting, talking about young Dantes and how lucky he is, and Cateros is just getting drunker and drunker and drunker, right? And he is still... He's not jealous. He truly is not. He's happy for his friend. He's saluting his friend. He's toasting his friend, right? So he's an interesting character. Very interesting character. So now they have the betrothal feast scheduled to be right there at that same inn, La Reserve, right? So they're all coming. So, getting ahead of myself. The plot, of course. So the plot is Danglars saw that the Pharaon took port at the island of Elba. And while they were there, Dantes did basically a crucial mission for his poor Captain Leclerc, where he delivered a letter to Napoleon at Elba, and in response took a letter from Napoleon to be delivered to a Bonapartist agent somewhere in Paris, right? So, Dantes screwed up. I mean, obviously he did screw up, but in his defense, he was a first mate acting on the duty, the dying order of his captain, right? So anyway, Danglars saw this letter, so he knows that Dantes has it. Here we go. So he kind of tells Fernand about this, because Fernand is trying to find a way to get Dantes out of the picture without killing him. Because he knows if he kills Dantes, Mercedes, in turn, will kill herself. And then he won't be able to, have his goal of being with Mercedes. So he wants to kill Dantes, but he can't. How can he get rid of him? Well, what other way can a man be taken away? Prison, right? So here comes the plan. Danglars asks for a paper and a pen, and with his left hand, he writes a letter basically saying, on the person of this Edmond Dantes, first mate of the Pharaon, you will find a letter addressed to a Bonapartist agent that he picked up from the usurper on the island of Elba. And I think it says all we would have to do is post that to the deputy crown prosecutor, and that would be that. But Cateras is still, he has his wits about him. He's like, no, we can't do this to good Dantes. Why would we do this? And then Danglars is like, of course we wouldn't do this. It was just a joke. And he wrinkles up the letter and he throws it into the corner, right? And then Cateras is like, oh, good, yeah, we would never do that to poor Dantes. No, never. And Fernand is like, yeah, right? So, anyway, Danglars takes Cateras home because he's too drunk. Fernand, here he is just kind of creeping, watching the lovers walking along the lane. That's a very good one, too. I like that one. But anyway, Fernand reaches and grabs the crumpled up letter. I really like this. This is man. I could talk about these illustrations all day. To be honest with you, there's a few that I might get a little bit deep on. We'll see. Anyway, picks up the letter, does something bad with it. The betrothal feast, chapter 5. Extreme happiness. Young Dantes, about to be made captain at age 19, about to marry the love of his life, is on his way to his betrothal feast with his loyal sailors and his friends. His father marches beside him. Word is, he's even going to be graced with his ship owner's presence, which was an unheard of, thing at that time. That's like amazing, right? So they get to this wonderful feast. Joy and happiness abound, right? There's a part where it's like someone asked to Dantes, why are you like Edmond? Why are you look so sad? He's like, sometimes such immense joy can cause these kind of feelings. Like it's so much joy, you're just like, whoa, So like it's like they're just so full of joy, and then all of a sudden, heavy boots on the steps coming up, and here comes the gendarmes basically. I don't know who that's supposed to be. Skipping. Anyway, the gendarmes arrest young Edmond. Here they had the arrest orders to take him away. And they take him down to the deputy crown prosecutor. And the crown prosecutor is currently out of town. So the deputy crown prosecutor will be the one to take care of this. So this is, I think, young Mercedes appealing to the deputy. Some of these are not quite in order here. And old Dantes just despondent. So imagine, again, a master of this. The joy, the complete joy to the complete despair, right? And they're all just kind of like, this will be over quickly. I'm sure it was just a customs matter. It won't be a big deal. We'll see Edmond in the morning, right? Monsieur de Villefort. Here is the deputy crown prosecutor, young and ambitious in his own right, who is engaged to be married to the daughter of the Marquise de Saint-Méran, who's someone who's very high in the king's favor at this time. This lady is I'm not a fan. However, I am a fan of young Renee de Saint-Méran. And in Renee, you can see the beginnings of one of my very favorite characters, Valentine. Of course, her daughter. We're getting ahead of ourselves here. Later on in the book. So, and this is it. Like, she gets like a brief moment in the book, but you can see in her what she passes forward, which I think is just so cool and well done. Anyway, they're having this dinner party kind of mirroring Edmund's betrothal feast, right? So you have this betrothal feast and you have that betrothal feast. I think this is a very well done illustration too. I just want to point that out. I love the eyes of the ladies here and how they're peering. It's fantastically done. Anyway, Monsieur Morel appeals to the deputy crown prosecutor to, Edmond is a good chap, and he shouldn't be, nothing's going to go wrong with him, but falls upon deaf ears, right? The deputy crown prosecutor meets with Edmond, questions Edmond. Edmond tells the story about how they set, they did go to Elba, they did, meet up with Napoleon. He did get a letter. In fact, he has the letter on him now. He gives the letter to Villefort. Villefort reads the letter, and he says, it's a simple matter. You made a mistake, but, I can see that you were innocent in the matter. He's about to release him, and he's basically asked, do you know who this was addressed to? It's like, well, yes, to Monsieur Nautier. And now all of a sudden, he's like, jaw drops. No? And then he destroys the letter. And he's like, as you can see, Edmond, I've done you a favor. Mention this Nautier to nobody, and everything will be fine, and you'll be released, But everything is not going to be fine for poor Edmond. He's put into the carriage, led down to the quay, and put aboard a boat. Here he is, boarding the boat with the gendarmes at his back. Taken to the Chateau d'If. So good. So good. Like, seriously, just that morning, he's at the brink of supreme happiness. And now, imprisoned in the worst dungeon, they could possibly imagine, right? So anyway, here they are taking him ashore. And he's kind of stunned. And he kind of stands there stunned for a while. And at one point, this is him he basically saying, I will pay you 100 francs to take just one line to Mercedes for me. And then when the jailer refuses, this is him threatening to bash him over the head with his stool. So I love how in even this old etchings, I can pick out that's exactly the scene right there. That's exactly what it is. It's awesome. Anyway, the Minister of Prisons, again, they're appealing to Villefort again, trying to find out what happened to Edmond. Mercedes even appeals to Villefort to find out what's happening. She's stricken. And old Fernand, he likes that, so he's laying kisses upon her hand. She's not even noticing. She just wants her Edmond back, right? Oh, old Danglars. Well, no, this is the. So now it switches. We get a scene with like King Louis, right? So here we are in King Louis's court. This is Baron d'André, and this is the King Louis, and he. So basically, Monsieur de Villefort, he saw a way for this to be to his advantage. So he takes this news from the letter that basically Napoleon is planning to return from the island of Elba. He's going to set foot on France's shore, and he wants to take this and give this news right to the king. You don't want any in-between people that are going to take his credit. So he's able to work through his soon-to-be stepdad to get a letter to see the king. And he comes to see the king to tell him this news. The king is currently meeting with his deputy of police, this Mr. Blockus here, I think. And I could have these names wrong, but this guy has no clue. He's like, no, everything's fine. The usurper is still on Elba. No news that he's trying to leave. He's spending his days, picking at daisies and doing silly things. So, however, a report comes in. I like this too. Look at the king, the big fat king here. That's fantastic. A report comes in that indeed the usurper has left, Napoleon has left Elba, and he has in fact landed in the south of France and is in fact marching on Paris at this very time. So this is when the king is like, man, Villefort, you did a good job here, and he gives him the the cross of the Legion of Honor, basically, and really kind of honors him greatly. We're almost to the end of part one. So now, of course, you have the... Oh, this is great, too. The meeting of Nautier and Villefort, right? So after Villefort leaves the king's presence, he goes back to his little residence there, only to find his father has already found him there. Like, this dude is, skilled, man. He's, he already knows where he's at. He knows where he's going. He kind of knows everything that's going on. This bad dude right here, Nautier. I don't know if I'm saying that. That's why I say Nautier. Anyway, he's a real badass dude. He's a Bonapartist, and he's kind of responsible for helping Bonaparte return to the country here. His son tells him that he's wanted. They're watching for him, and they're watching for this exact description. So he shaves his beard, he shaves his sideburns, he changes his coat, he changes his hat, he gets a new walking stick, and all of a sudden, boom, we got a new Nautier walking out, right? So it's kind of left between father and son. That was that chapter 12. Villefort's ambition, right? And it works out for him perfectly both ways. He gets to have it both ways, because in the following chapter, of course, Napoleon returns to power for the 100 days. During that time, Villefort is able to keep his position thanks to his father. But then when Napoleon falls, Villefort is again able to keep his position thanks to his stepdad, who's still high in favor with the king, and the fact that he was still high in favor with the king. So Villefort advances and grows. Old Dantes dies alone in his bed. And this is what I call part 1 of the Count of Monte Cristo. That's chapters 1 through 13. So, ending with the 100 days. And what are the themes of part 1, right? What are the themes? Again, joy, super joy, all the way down to despair. And they're just going back and forth like that. It's so well done. Jealousy of love, jealousy of position. And what about, so, of the conspirators, right? Who sinned the most? And you could say there's the 3 conspirators, and you have Villefort and his personal ambition, right? And in my mind, of course, Danglars is the worst, the chief instigator. Without him and his plan, Fernand would not have done anything. Or at least would not have done anything that would have ended in that. Maybe he would have taken a more violent route. which I don't think would have ended well for him anyway. But so Danglars, the chief instigator of the conspiracy, Fernand II, for, picking up the letter and following through with it. Carros, standing by, who stood by, and even after Dantes was arrested, he knew what they did, was afraid to come forward for fear of himself being called a Bonapartist. So, a drunk and a coward. And then you have Villefort, who did not know Dantes and was only brought into the situation because of his position, right? But then knew that he had one thing to do. He had to defend his position and his power by defending his father and himself, and covering that. So, on what slender threads do life and fortune hang? That's a line from this first section. And I think it perfectly encompasses what this first section really is all about, right? So, that's it. That's the end of part one. Dantes's fall from complete joy to abject misery. But then, the next section, you take that again. You're down here at the bottom, and then boom, you're popping it back up to the top. But then you're also tickling a lot of funny bones. You're tickling a lot of funny bones with this next one here. Am I getting ahead of myself here? Let me see. So this is just kind of like closing out like the last chapter. I think you see Fernand, he goes off to war. And let me see. Okay. All right, yes. All right, we won't get ahead of ourselves. Next time, we will get into the Chateau d'If, which is what I call part 2 of the Count of Monte Cristo, which we may get into here real soon. So, hope to see you then. I hope you've enjoyed this little chat about one of my favorite books, and it turns out that this is not going to be a short talk at all. This is going to be a long trek through France, Italy, the Mediterranean, the human soul, and more. As always, my friends, live long and prosper. We'll see you guys in the next one. Good night.